Okay, I want you to close your eyes for a second. Picture the godfather of soul, James Brown. It's, say, 1964. The stage is hot, the lights are blinding, and he is right there in the center. The cape gets draped over his shoulders, he's sweating, he drops to his knees, and the crowd just, it absolutely loses its mind. It's the definition of a one-man powerhouse.
It is. It's one of the most enduring images in music history. The singular genius, the hardest working man in show business.
But if we open our eyes and zoom out just a little bit, if you look just, 3 feet to the left or 3 feet to the right of that spotlight, there's someone else there.
Yeah.
There's a guy dancing just as hard. He's catching the cape. He's hitting the harmonies that actually make the song work. But when we tell the story later, he's usually cropped out of the photo.
And that's what historians call the great man narrative.
Yeah.
We love the idea of the solitary hero, the Steve Jobs, the Elvis, the James Brown. It's a cleaner story.
Right.
But the reality of creating something massive, whether it's a tech company or a soul revolution, is almost always a machine. It's a collective. And usually for the great man to shine, a lot of other essential gears have to become invisible.
And today, we are going to stop that machine and look at one of those gears. We are talking about a man who stood right next to greatness, helped invent a genre, and then had to spend decades fighting just to prove he was even there.
We are talking about Lloyd Eugene Stallworth.
Stallworth. Most people probably haven't heard that name, or if they have, they know him by his nickname.
Baby Lloyd. He was, you could say, the heart and soul of the famous Flames.
Now, I have to be honest, before we started digging into these sources, the litigation files, the Hall of Fame archives, I just assumed the famous Flames were, backup singers.
Right.
Like props. They stand in the back, they snap their finger, they go, ooh, and ah.
And that is exactly the misconception we need to dismantle today. Because if you treat the famous Flames like standard backup singers, you miss the entire architecture of James Brown's success. These guys weren't just backing him.
They were the engine.
They were the engine. And Lloyd Stallworth was the spark plug.
So this isn't just a biography. This is really an investigation into the machinery of fame. We're looking at where the line is drawn between star and support, and, well, what happens when that line gets moved.
Plus, we have a 27-year controversy over credit, a lawsuit worth millions of dollars, and a really tragic ending.
So let's unpack this. Where does the story of Baby Lloyd even begin?
Well, to understand the end, we have to look at the beginning. We're in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It's 1957. Lloyd Stallworth is just a teenager, and he lands a job working for James Brown. But here's the kicker. He isn't hired to sing.
Okay, so what is he doing? Loading the gear.
He's the valet. He's pressing suits, and occasionally he's the driver.
A teenage driver for James Brown? That sounds a little dangerous.
Laughs. It probably was. But the best part is why he got the job. I found this detail in the biographical records, and it's just great. His mother actually arranged the gig.
His mom got him a job as a valet.
Yes. She explicitly wanted to get him out of Fort Lauderdale to, quote, keep him out of trouble.
Wait, hold on. She sent him on tour with a rock and roll band to keep him out of trouble.
It's incredible, isn't it? It has to be the most counterintuitive parenting move of the 1950s. Usually the tour bus is where trouble is invented, but it just shows you how young he was. Just a kid. But he did not stay behind the wheel for long.
So how does one go from parking the car to holding the microphone?
Pure talent. You just couldn't hide it. By 1958, he's off the payroll as a valet, and he's officially a member of the famous Flames.
Wow.
And this is where we need to talk about the music. Because when you listen to those early hits, think, bewildered, I don't mind. You aren't just hearing James Brown's voice.
Right, you're hearing that call and response thing, that interplay.
Exactly. But let's break down why that matters. In traditional pop music of the time, the backup singers were usually smooth, harmonious. They blended into the background. The famous Flames were percussive.
Oh, that's interesting.
They were rhythmic. When James screams, they scream back. It's a conversation.
So they were almost like a second drum kit, but with voices.
That is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And Lloyd Stallworth was crucial to that texture. He wasn't just filling space, he was driving the energy. And for anyone who thinks, okay, but he was still just performing what he was told to perform, there is a smoking gun in the discography.
Oh, what did you find?
There's a track from 1961. It's called Lost Someone. It was a pretty significant hit. Now, usually on a James Brown record, the writing credit says one thing. James Brown, maybe the producer.
Right.
But if you look at the actual copyright registration for Lost Someone, who do you see?
Don't tell me it's the valet.
It's Lloyd Stallworth.
Yeah.
Co-writer.
That is a huge deal for 1961.
It's massive. It proves he was a creative architect of the sound. He wasn't just a hired voice. In that era, the lines were blurry. You were a valet, then a dancer, then a writer, then a singer. Stallworth was a true multi-hyphenate. He was helping build the house that James Brown would eventually own.
And they built a palace. I mean, the sources highlight two moments where this group was just untouchable. The first is Live at the Apollo in '63. Now, I know people talk about this album all the time, but why does it matter so much for Lloyd?
Because Live at the Apollo captures the hysteria. You can hear the interplay between the Flames and the audience. That album sold 1 million copies. It hit the top 10. A live R&B album doing that.
Unheard of.
Completely unheard of. It proved that the show, the group dynamic, that was the product.
And then came the TMI show in 1964.
The TMI show is legendary. It was this massive concert film recorded at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. You had the Beach Boys, Marvin Gaye, Chuck Berry, and the headliners were the Rolling Stones.
And the Stones were the biggest thing in the world at that point, right?
They were exploding. But history remembers this night for one reason. James Brown and the famous Flames.
I've seen clips of this. It looks like an Affleck event, not a concert.
It is. Lloyd and the other Flames aren't just standing at microphones snapping. They're doing split-second choreography. They're dropping to their knees, popping back up, spinning. It's synchronized chaos.
And they went so hard.
They went so hard that Keith Richards has famously admitted that choosing to follow James Brown and the famous Flames was the biggest mistake of their careers.
They upstaged the Rolling Stones.
They incinerated them.
Right.
And Lloyd was right there on the front line.
So at this point, Lloyd has to be thinking, I've made it. He's writing hits. He's out dancing the Stones. And the research shows he actually tried to launch a solo career around this time, didn't he?
He did. And this is a really interesting what-if moment in music history. He released solo singles under the name Baby Lloyd. He had a track on Atco Records called I Need You. He was on a label called Loma with There's Something on Your Mind.
Did they go anywhere?
Not really. And you have to wonder why. Was it a lack of promotion? Was it that the public couldn't separate him from the group? But there is one solo recording that I think perfectly captures his confidence. He appeared on an album called Presenting, The James Brown Show. And guess what song he chose to sing?
I have no idea.
He covered I Can't Get No
The
Satisfaction.
Rolling Stones song.
The very same.
That is bold.
Yeah.
It's like, we just blew you off the stage at the TMI show, and now I'm going to sing your biggest hit on my boss's album.
It's a total power move. And it shows his range. He was interpreting contemporary rock and roll. He wasn't just a soul singer. He had the potential to be a crossover star.
So why didn't it happen? We have all the ingredients for a spin-off success story here. But instead, the story takes a really, really sharp turn.
It does.
Yeah.
And we can pinpoint the moment the erasure begins.
The sources all point to 1966, specifically the Ed Sullivan Show.
Right. So on May 1st, 1966, the famous Flames perform on Ed Sullivan. Lloyd is there. They kill it. But then James Brown is booked to return on October 30th, 1966, just 5 months later. And when the curtain comes up,
Lloyd Stallworth is gone.
he's gone. The famous Flames are gone.
What happened in those 5 months?
Business. Cold, hard business.
Huh.
The dynamic had shifted from a group effort to a star and support model. And this is where we need to explain a concept that ruins a lot of friendships in music. The difference between billing and salary.
Okay, break this down for me. Like, if Lloyd is getting a paycheck, why does it matter if he has billing?
Okay, so salary means you are an employee. You get paid, say, $500 a week to show up and sing. If the record sells 10 copies, you get $500. If the record sells 10 million copies, you get $500.
Ouch. Okay, I see where this is going.
Billing, or being a contracted artist, usually comes with points royalties. It means you own a piece of the work. If the record blows up, you blow up. The dispute here was that James Brown was the artist. The famous Flames were becoming employees.
So they were getting shut out of the wealth they were helping to generate.
Precisely. And it wasn't just money, it was their faces. King Records never put the famous Flames on the album covers. It was only ever James Brown.
That feels intentional.
It's branding 101. If the public doesn't know what you look like, you have no leverage. You can't leave and start a solo career because nobody knows you were the guy singing the hook on Think. They just know James Brown.
That is devastating. So Lloyd leaves the group in '66. The golden era is over. What happens to him? Does he go back to Florida?
Well, he drifts for a while. But then, in a twist that is honestly kind of heartbreaking, he eventually goes back to work for the James Brown Organization.
Oh, wow. So they reconciled. He's back on stage.
No. The records show he took a job on the clerical staff.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me the guy who co-wrote Lost Someone and Danced the Stones off the stage is now filing papers?
It appears so, and I think that just speaks to the psychological hold of that great man machine. Even when you're cast out, the gravity of the star pulls you back in, but often in a diminished role.
So we have the 70s, the 80s, the 90s passing by. James Brown is becoming an even bigger icon. He's in the Blues Brothers. He's getting sampled by every hip-hop artist on earth. What is Lloyd doing during this time?
He's living a relatively quiet life, dealing with health issues. But the resentment, or maybe just the realization of injustice, is brewing, and it finally boils over in 2002.
This is the lawsuit.
Yes. In 2002, Lloyd Stallworth is 61 years old. He teams up with other members of the Flames, Bobby Bird, Bobby Bennett, and they sue James Brown.
And this wasn't for a few $1,000s, was it?
No. Baby Lloyd and Bobby Bennett were seeking $7 million. Bobby Bird wanted $5 million.
And their argument was basically, you never paid us those royalties from the 60s.
Correct. They argued that because of their songwriting, their arrangement contributions, they were owed a share of the profits that had been compounding for 40 years.
So this seems pretty straightforward. If they wrote the songs, they should get paid. Why did the lawsuit fail?
This is where the legal system can be incredibly cruel. The case wasn't dismissed because the judge said, you didn't write the songs. It wasn't dismissed because the judge said, James Brown doesn't owe you money.
Then why?
It was dismissed because of the statute of limitations.
The clock ran out.
Exactly. The defense argued that if they weren't paid in 1965, they should have sued in, 1968. You can't wake up in 2002 and sue for something that happened in the Kennedy administration.
But wait, isn't there an argument that every time a record is sold, a new payment is owed? Like, if a radio station plays Think today, isn't that a new event?
That's called the continuous accrual doctrine, and it's exactly what their lawyers tried to argue. They said, hey, James Brown is still selling these records, so the theft is happening right now. But the court didn't buy it, not in this specific context regarding the underlying contracts. They ruled that the original breach happened decades ago.
That is such a bitter pill to swallow. You're right, but you're too late.
And the timing makes it even more tragic. The lawsuit was filed in 2002. But Lloyd Stallworth never even saw the inside of a courtroom.
Why not?
He passed away in October 2002.
Oh, man.
He died from complications of diabetes. He was only 61. So right as he finally worked up the courage to demand what was his, he was gone.
So he dies without the money. And at that point, he still doesn't have the recognition, right? Because we have to talk about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
This is the final insult, really. James Brown was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1986. First ballot. Charter member.
And the Flames?
Not invited.
How does that even happen? We just spent 10 minutes talking about how they were the engine of the sound. How do you induct the hood ornament, but not the engine?
It's the great man narrative again. The Hall of Fame, especially in the early days, focused on the front man. Years later, the CEO of the Rock Hall, a guy named Terry Stewart, he actually admitted it. He said there was no legislative intent to leave them out. He said, quote, somehow they just got overlooked.
Overlooked. That is a very polite way of saying erased.
It is. And it took them 26 years to fix the oversight.
26 years.
In 2011, they formed a special committee to look at backing groups. The Crickets, the Midnighters, the Famous Flames. They decided to finally induct them in 2012.
But by 2012, Lloyd is gone.
Lloyd had been dead for a decade. Johnny Terry was gone. Bobby Bird was gone. When the ceremony finally happened, only one member, Bobby Bennett, was alive to walk up to that podium.
That image is just heavy. Standing there alone, receiving an award for a group that's basically gone.
It was bittersweet. But the person who inducted them, Smokey Robinson, gave a speech that I think is the most important takeaway from this entire story.
Smokey Robinson knows a thing or two about groups. He was with the Miracles.
Exactly. And he looked at the audience and he said, these people do not stand behind you, they stand with you.
They stand with you. I like that.
And then he kind of dropped the mic metaphorically. He said, if James Brown was the hardest working man in show business, the Famous Flames were the hardest working group.
Finally, some vindication.
It's in the history books now. And recently, we have seen a bit more recognition. Lloyd was a character in the James Brown biopic Get On Up in 2014. And in 2020, he was inducted into the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame.
So we've gone from the valet parking the car, to the top of the charts, to the clerical staff, to the courtroom, and finally to the Hall of Fame. It is a wild arc.
It really is.
So when we step back and look at the life of Lloyd Stallworth, what's the big lesson here? What are we supposed to take away from this?
I think it's a warning about how we consume history. We like our icons to be singular. It's easier to put one face on a t-shirt. But culture isn't made by individuals. It's made by constellations of people. Lloyd Stallworth proves that you can be essential, you can be a genius in your own right, and you can still be forgotten if you don't control your own narrative.
It's a reminder to always read the liner notes.
Always read the liner notes. That's where the truth is.
Because without the Baby Lloyds of the world, the Godfathers just don't sound the same.
They absolutely don't. The James Brown sound is the Lloyd Stallworth sound.
That is a powerful thought. And I want to leave our listener with one more question to chew on today.
What's that?
Next time you're scrolling through Spotify or watching the biggest pop star in the world perform at the Super Bowl, look at the person standing 3 feet to their left. Look the person in the shadows holding the guitar or singing the harmony. Who is the Baby Lloyd of 2026? Who is the person doing the work, writing the hooks, making the magic happen right now, who we might not give an award to for another 30 years?
And are they getting billing or just a salary?
That is the real question. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
See you time.